friends, so I've had some questions about the different kind of paints that I use and kind of what the difference is between them. And so I'm going to take a little time here and just do some fun demonstrating on this canvas. And I'm going to show you some different mark making tools and just kind of ways to make interesting patterns and shapes, and kind of the best ways that I've learned work for me in just my years of playing. But you know, keep in mind, trial and error is part of the fun. So if something isn't behaving or, you know, looking or adhering to the canvas or spreading, or the colors aren't mixing in a way that you're kind of intending or going for, the only way that you figure that out is just through exploration. The mistakes and like the failure of not being how it should be are where all of the fun is in painting. That's what makes it just such a joy. So just remember that the process is the point. That it's the joy of painting. It's just taking that time to really just enjoy the tactile interaction of paint and how pretty and fun it can be. Intuitive painting wise, I'm still just playing. I have no idea what this is going to end up looking like by the time that we are done hanging out. It might take form, or it might start to look like something. If you start to see something, tell me in the comments. I love hearing what other people see in the imagery. I think that's just half of the fun. We'll see what we end up with. So I have already poured out some matte, let's see if you can see that okay, matte medium. And matte medium is liquidy. Let's see. Yeah, you can hear. So this is really good if you want to like extend the longevity of your paint, so it doesn't dry as fast. This will help keep it damp longer, but you can also do that with water a bit, but when you do it with water, it will thin your paint down, where this keeps it the same consistency. It's also good for if you have a, let's see here if any of this will show up. Yeah, that works. So this is a fairly soft body paint. And then I'll show you a couple others so you can really see how they... This is an even softer one, so you can see how this drips down, where this kind of keeps those little peaks. And you can see even when I move the camera, or not the camera, even when I move the canvas, you can see these thinner paint in texture start to move. And so the more liquidy it is, the more it will be playful in that kind of way, where this stays very sturdy. But if you're trying to get, let's see here. This brush is a perfect example of do as I say, not as I do, because it is in such bad shape. Like, the bristles will not move past here. So this is like the only functional part of this brush. That is because I don't have the best habit of cleaning out my brushes when I'm done, and instead sometimes I just leave them in the water, or I rinse them a little and then just let them dry, and that's not good for your brushes. That will, it'll just cause the buildup to kind of damage them and make them harder. So, what's fun with this very liquidy paint here is that you can just add a little bit of water, and it starts to just sort of blend itself because their consistency is so similar that it just blends very easily. Where with this, when you add the watery bits, you'll still pick up some of the paint because it's wet. But if you want to keep it kind of damp around there, your water and whatever pigment you've added will actually sort of move around the bigger, more sturdy bits of paint. So that's just kind of a fun thing to play with. Once this is dry, so on our second layer, if this were dry, you could really brush over it with a nice watery paint. And that gives you, let's see, I'm gonna try to see if I can get it here. Just to give you a bit of an idea. Let's see here. It can give you something really fun like this here, where you have that nice, interesting contrast happening between your vibrant, more hard-bodied paint and then the very liquidy, soft, fluid body paint. So that one here is this one. I like it. There's no no sponsorship or anything. If you want to sponsor me, go for it. But this is one that I like to use. Blick has these matte acrylics that I really enjoy. They're pretty inexpensive. So if you're just trying this out and just seeing if you want to try playing with paints, this is a nice one. And it's this kind of middle body where it's not super, super heavy, but if you added a little bit of the, let me show you. So a little bit of the matte medium here, and I'm very intentionally mixing all of this. Like I'm trying to smooth it all out and make whatever kind of color is going to come through here. And you can see now that it's all kind of the same consistency and color, but it's no longer that thick kind of body that it is over here. It's now much, much more thin, fluid, liquidy. And then as you can see, when you have it in that kind of easier consistency, it will mix more readily than with the colors that are already there. So if you just kind of let them touch a little bit, then they just kind of do really fun kind of dancing on their own. You know, you can tilt your canvas and it'll start to go over here on this little playground. And it's just very beautiful, I think. It's just so fun to watch how it just kind of makes all sorts of beautiful patterns just on its own when you are comfortable kind of leaving it to its own devices. Like, look at that. Look at how fun that is. Just this interesting pattern. But you have to be comfortable letting it get ugly or letting it be wrong. This is what the play is. It's realizing that cool things can kind of happen here and there, and then if we like it, keep it. If we don't like it or we cover it up, we know how to do that now. So we don't have to be afraid that we won't, you don't have to be afraid to cover up something that you kind of like because you're worried that you'll never be able to do it again, because you know how to do it because you've already proven to yourself that just trusting yourself and playing will get you there. So then you can really just relax into the process. And that's where all the really like cathartic joy flow kind of state comes from with art anyways, just when you can kind of realize that there's no wrong. It's just keep playing. If you don't like it, keep going, you know? Work with what is working and let go of what isn't serving you anymore. Life lessons. So, anyway, that just kind of shows you how, you know, I just take what's there and play with it. See what it does and where it goes. Again, this is the same consistency. It's just a bigger one, and it's the fluid acrylics. So we have fluid, and then we have these ones, which you can hear are very liquidy. They have a little ball in there that helps move it around and keep it really liquidy. And so these are the high flow acrylics. Sometimes in my video I might say the wrong one. I try to be correct. But if it's super liquidy, it's the high flow. And they're very neat because they are very just delightfully drippy. And so you get a whole other set of options now when you have this even more liquidy one. So I like to use a fairly wide brush, preferably one that is in better shape, but you don't have to have perfect tools to paint beautifully. It's just, you just have to be present and start. So I'm just adding, and I dab off excess water, and I keep going back because I'm rinsing. There we go. So I wanted it fairly clear on the brush. So I'm just putting down clear water here. But then when you allow those surfaces to touch, the paint can really play into that space because it's already somewhat damp. And so if you want it to gradate in color more, so go from dark to light more, you just bring in more of that paint. And it will naturally just kind of drip and give you that beautiful color change. See, like, you can totally do this. It will look different than mine. And keep in mind, I have been painting for thousands of hours in my life, so don't compare your work to me. Be kind enough to compare your work to yourself, if anyone, but you don't need to compare it. So anyway, I got distracted with that. I apologize. So, but you see, I just kind of get so into the mode of just kind of following whatever interests me as I'm painting, and that's really all I do. So to kind of be conscious of explaining my thinking as I go is something I'm kind of getting used to. So right here we have a really fun, like, high contrast. So it's a very light color next to a very dark color. And so it'll automatically kind of just mix as we go if we just let them, you know, keep hanging out and they're still on my brush. So just moving your brush is going to give you interesting, you know, results. Another fun thing that's going to happen that I just think is delightful, this if you look really closely here, you start to get these very interesting just lines that kind of will occur because the one paint is so much more liquidy than the other. So it just causes that difference in density, causes very interesting things to happen artistically there. So then put that there. Okay. So if you have a very thin brush, so something like this, oh goodness. I am a messy painter. I work fast, but I'm messy. So anyway, a thin brush like this, and it's fairly damp. This time I didn't really drip it off too much, but you will sometimes get like a buildup here. It's hard to show you, but you can see that there's a buildup coming right here, and there's one at the tip of the brush here. So if I were to start painting now, this will kind of blob down and give me way more water than I want. So that's something to be aware of. And so to avoid that, you just barely dab it on your paper towel, and you can even kind of run the metal bit just on the edge there. And I found that's a really good way to kind of help get rid of any extra water that may have built up on this part of the brush. So anyway, we have it, it's fairly full of water. And since this very liquidy paint is still pretty wet, I can make these very fun, delicate lines. And let's see here. So the more this dries, the thicker it becomes. And so you can add just a bit of water like I'm doing here, and that will get it to be, you know, softer and more fluid to work with again. And as you can see, I'm not dabbing it off, and so what I'm actually doing is using that bit of water that would be inconvenient if I'm trying to do something very delicate. But here, it's just a nice way to bring in more liquid, but not so much that, you know, it's overwhelming and kind of splatters beyond what you're wanting to control, I guess. So these are just very fun, messy lines. Intuitive painting really helped me embrace the messiness and kind of the joy of things being smudged, and